Today, I'm going to be taking over Arch Manning, and we have many goals for this video. We're going to see if he can win a high school state championship, along with once he gets to college becoming a Heisman winner, winning a conference championship, and winning a national championship at Texas. So get some popcorn because this is going to be a good one. Arch Manning is the nephew of Peyton Manning and Eli Manning, and right now he's playing his senior year of high school football. He is the #1 player in the country. He's playing football in Louisiana at the 2A level, so hopefully they can go out and win a championship. We're going to see if it'll be possible. It's a great start against many, and he was off to a great start to the season. This was most likely going to be the only time he played football in the next 2 years, because in his freshman year at Texas, he was probably going to redshirt. He said he's willing to do that, and that it could honestly help him improve even more just by sitting a year. But let's go ahead and get to the playoffs. In the first round of the playoffs, Arch Manning was taking on Brownfields, and I know the record doesn't show it, but he had an incredible year, and Arch Manning won his first playoff game with ease. In the second round, we were playing against many again, but Arch Manning made sure it wasn't even a close one. He was one game away from a state championship, and he was playing amazing. After he won another game in dominant fashion, the Louisiana 2A state championship was set, and even though Bridge City was undefeated, Arch Manning was doing whatever he wanted, and it was clear that Newman was going to win the state championship. This was an amazing start to Arch Manning's career, but now it was time for him to go to Texas. This was what the Big 12 was going to look like for the next couple years before Texas went over to the SEC, and Arch Manning still decided he wanted to redshirt his freshman year, sit behind Quinn Ewers for one season, and honestly, Texas was playing terrible. They lost to Kansas, and then they went out and lost to Kansas State the next week. So after a loss to Oklahoma, a loss to Tennessee, and a heartbreaker at LSU, Texas was sitting at the rock bottom of the conference, and it was time for a quarterback change. You could pretty much write off Quinn Ewers as a massive bust at this point. He was supposed to be this perfect recruit, but Arch Manning decided it was time for him to burn his red shirt. He got promoted over Hudson Card, so his debut was coming up against TCU, and on his first collegiate snap, he started off with just a simple completion underneath. But on the next play, Arch Manning dropped back, and he delivered an absolute bomb, and Jordan Whittington ran under it, and he took it all the way to the house. Arch Manning coming in was the exact thing Texas needed to turn their season around, and he walked away with a win in his debut. The following week, Arch Manning was taken on number 10 UCF, and it did not go well. Arch Manning didn't even play bad, but the Longhorns just didn't play well as a team, and they were sitting at 3-6 on the season. Arch Manning was not having a good game against Texas's rivals Baylor, and it just continued to get worse. He got cut some slack because he was still a freshman, but he would need to improve if he wanted to keep the starting job, and that is exactly what he did the following week when his Longhorns took on Texas Tech. He threw his second touchdown of the game on this play, and midway through the third quarter, he connected with Isaiah Newer. This was definitely a game that made his dad Cooper Rush proud because he was playing insanely well, and he even used his legs to get into the end zone right here. And after he got Texas the big win over their rivals, there was one game left in the season, and it was at Houston. He picked up right where he left off in the previous week, throwing for this touchdown on the run to his running back, and then he threw this touchdown near the end of the half. By the end of the third quarter, Texas was only up 3, but right at the start of the fourth, Arch Manning rolled around and he found his receiver in the end zone. In the end, he had done enough to get Texas the win. Arch Manning ended his freshman year with these stats. Alabama ended up winning the national championship, and we had one more season in the Big 12 before we moved to the SEC. Unfortunately, there were a lot of really good seniors that were leaving the team, and Arch Manning was going to miss 2 of his stud receivers. Steve Sarkisian signed an amazing recruiting class, so there was an absolute buttload of talent that was going to come in and help Arch Manning get this team to a national championship. Arch Manning had a really good offseason as he improved up to a 91 overall, and his stats were absolutely filthy. Because they knew they weren't going to get playing time, Quinn Ewers and Hudson Card both transferred out of the program, and Texas started the year ranked 28th in the country. ESPN didn't think the Longhorns would finish at the top of their division, but Arch Manning had other plans in mind. He started his sophomore season by railing UTSA, and it was clear that he wanted to be in the Heisman race, but he wasn't quite good enough to be in that yet. In week 2, Texas barely beat Colorado State, and in week 3, the Longhorns were hosting the Wolverines. But before we get into the game, let me ask you all a question. Have you all ever wanted to play me in a game of NCAA football? And trust me, I've seen the comments and you all act like you can beat me, so that's why I'm partnering with Run Your Pool on an awesome giveaway where you have a chance to actually do that. Run Your Pool is the best sports pool hosting service, and that is for literally everything. From fantasy football, March Madness, college football pick'ems, You name it, they have it. Anyway, you can win a jersey of your favorite sports team and you have a chance to compete against me. All you have to do is join my community pool. It's a weekly college football pick'em contest, and the best part is you can enter for free. At the end of the season, the winner with the best record will get any jersey of their choice. Literally, all you have to do is pick the winners of 10 different college football games each week, and if you pick the most games right, you're gonna get a jersey. And there's also a lot of games that are really easy to pick, so if you think you're a smart college football fan, you have a pretty good shot here. So make sure to click the link at the top of my description and join my group on Run Your Pool. It's going to be a ton of fun and I hope to see you all over there, but let's see how Arch Manning did against Michigan. He started the game off on fire, finding his receivers for massive gains, but unfortunately Michigan had a 6-point lead at the end of the half until Arch Manning found Ajayi Hall and he would take it all the way in the end zone to give Texas a 1-point lead. But JJ McCarthy was playing amazing and we had to get back in it. That's what Arch Manning did with that touchdown run, and then on 4th and 2, he had to pick up the first down, but he threw the ball straight into the Michigan defender's hands, so Texas lost their first game of the season. The only good thing about it was a non-conference loss, so it wasn't going to stop Texas from making the playoffs if they won out, but Arch Manning and the Longhorns were not playing good against Nebraska. After going down 21 points, Arch Manning threw another interception to end the half, and if he wanted to save the Longhorn season, he was going to have an amazing third quarter. That is exactly what he was able to do. On the last play of the quarter, he threw this touchdown, but unfortunately the Texas defense just couldn't get it done. Losing to Nebraska is something that no one ever expects. Texas started off conference play with a huge win over Kansas State. See, if he could lead the Longhorns to a win over Oklahoma, Texas could reasonably make the conference championship. But that was much, much easier said than done. He was struggling throughout the game until he dropped this bomb midway through the second quarter, and he was showing that he did not want Texas to lose this rivalry. It was an extremely close game, and at the beginning of the fourth quarter, Arch Manning ended up getting hurt on this play. Fortunately, he was able to come back into the game and give the Longhorns the lead, and Texas ended up winning the Red River Showdown. That win was enough to catapult Texas all the way back into the top 25, and Arch Manning decided he wanted to go off against Iowa State the following week. He finished with a light 4 touchdowns. He didn't play the best against TCU, but he stepped up when the Longhorns needed him the most, and with 25 seconds left, Arch Manning put Texas up 1. After he put up 5 touchdowns on UCF, with 3 games left in the season, Texas was on top of their division. Arch Manning played well enough to lead Texas to a win over Baylor, and the rivalry game went just as planned. All Texas had to do to make the conference championship was go out and beat Houston, which is what they did. Unfortunately, Arch Manning was probably going to miss the playoffs though, but he was only worried about the things he could control, and that was this game against Oklahoma State. It started off pretty well, and in the end, Arch Manning had done just enough to get the Longhorns the win. So Arch Manning now had a Big 12 championship to his name, and it was time for the moment of truth. Could Texas sneak into the playoffs? Unfortunately, they could not. The Alabama running back won the Heisman, but that didn't affect Arch Manning since he wasn't even in the race. He had some pretty good stats for his sophomore year, but now all that mattered was the Rose Bowl against USC. Even though Arch Manning and the Longhorns were no match for Caleb Williams and the Trojans, he was able to set a school record for the most touchdown passes in a season. But in the end, it didn't really matter because USC played so much better. So Arch Manning finished his second year 11-3, and he watched Alabama win the national championship from his couch. The fact that Arch Manning broke Colt McCoy's record though was amazing, and Arch Manning was a 99 overall by his junior year. He was definitely going to declare for the draft after this season, but he was going to have to compete in the SEC. Texas was projected to finish 3rd in their division, and they started off the year at Georgia. And this was the year we'd find out if Arch Manning could win Texas an SEC championship and a national championship. And the game against the Bulldogs went into overtime, so Arch Manning had a chance to get us the win, and that's exactly what he did. He had an amazing start to the season. His performance was enough to put him on the Heisman watch, and he continued to perform at a high level against Tennessee and against San Jose State. But that dominance wouldn't continue against Arkansas. Fortunately, we escaped with the win, and then we snuck by LSU the next week. But it was time for the biggest game of the season, and we had to win this game to stay on top of the conference. And Arch Manning started off the game with this dot. The game continued to go back and forth, but the Longhorns ended up having the edge going into the fourth quarter. However, with 12 seconds left, the Longhorns were down by 8 points, and they needed a miracle fast, and when it looked like nothing was open, Arch Manning threaded the needle and got the Longhorns in a good position. So with 2 seconds left, they had to get into the end zone on this play, but it didn't go as planned, and Texas lost the Red River Showdown. But that loss would not end our hopes at the college football playoffs. After winning at TCU, blowing out Mississippi State, and beating the Tigers, Texas was right back in the playoff race. Arch Manning was right behind Keaton Mitchell in the Heisman race, and it was all on the line this week when the Longhorns took on Texas A&M. If Arch Manning wanted to cement his legacy as a Longhorn, he was going to have to lead them to a conference championship, and after the big win against Texas A&M, Texas was tied for the top spot in their division. Unfortunately, to take over, Oklahoma would have to lose to Missouri, and that did not happen. So Arch Manning finished out the year with a win at Ole Miss. Somehow Texas A&M was the team that made the SEC championship, and now we had to pray that we made the college football playoffs. Arch Manning ended up not winning the Heisman, but I can see how. Statistically, he didn't have much better of a year this year than last year, but none of that mattered because Texas was in the college football playoffs. It wasn't going to be easy, but Arch Manning had a chance to get Texas a national championship, but he wasn't playing well, and the Longhorns found themselves down 11 in the third quarter. He was moving the ball down the field, but then he rolled out and he threw this interception straight to the Buckeyes. But from there wasn't much he could do, and Arch Manning was going to fall short of getting Texas a win over Ohio State. But in the end, he ended up getting drafted to the Texans with the 3rd pick of the draft. And if you want me to play his NFL career on Madden on my second channel, let me know in the comments. I just posted my NFL career from my road to glory on that channel. And lastly, don't forget to check out Run Your Pool.